Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unlock Value in the AV Tools You've Already Got, presented by Tom Panella and Will White. This webinar is brought to you by today's sponsor, AppSpace. Before I hand the presentation over to our presenters, there are a few housekeeping items that I must address first. For the CTS holders among you, today's webinar qualifies for one renewal unit for the CTS and for the CTSI, but none for the CTSD. Please allow up to 7 days for those to appear on your transcripts. If there are any issues, please email Avixa's webinar team directly at webinars@avixa.org. Today's webinar should last between 45 and 60 minutes, and all attendees have been placed on mute. If you have any questions during our presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window so today's moderators can address them at the end of the presentation. To access this Q&A window, move your cursor towards the live stream video box, look for the Q&A icon, and type away. Just please be mindful that there is a separate menu for the chat and to not put your questions there. You will have access to this recorded webinar on the Avixa website, and that location is avixa.org/webinars within about 7 days. That's all from Avixa for now, and on to our presentation. Tom and Will, the floor is yours.
All right, Dion, thanks so much. And everybody thanks for joining. I was kind of monitoring the chat and I see we got a nice cross section of people from all over, lots of different time zones. Was keeping an eye for some New Jersey folks because that's where I'm based. I saw somebody from Princeton. So hello from New Jersey to you all. I'm Tom Panella, and with me is Will White. We'll introduce ourselves in just a second, but we're excited to present to you today a pretty jam-packed agenda. So we're going to go quickly through things. With AppSpace, just to level set for you before I dive into what we'll cover specifically for today, AppSpace is a workplace experience platform, been around for over 20 years. And what we do is we provide the world's biggest companies with everything they need to manage the workplace experience with the demands of today's hybrid workplace. What does that mean? Well, it's digital signage, it's room and desk scheduling, it's visitor management, it's wayfinding, it's intranet. It is everything that an employee needs to navigate their office spaces and to do that before they even get to the office itself. But today, specifically, we're going to be talking from the lens of the AV pros dilemma, right? So managing a messy and fragmented tech stack, it should resonate with all of you. Not only the fact that it is messy and fragmented, but what are the costs about that that resonate with you and impact your team and employees? From there, we're going to talk about a unified vision, and that's really where we have some real clear strategies for you all to implement to simplify and connect your AV ecosystem. From there, we'll talk about best practices, and we'll do a live demo. So we'll actually show you how AppSpace is helping in this area for you. And then finally, we'll wrap up as we always do with some questions and some live Q&A. And so if I can go as quickly as I think I can, we'll save plenty of space for that. But I say that I'm drinking the iced coffee. I'm trying my best, but we'll see how fast we can go. Will, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So, hey, everybody, I'm Will White here at AppSpace. I've been at AppSpace over 10 years. I think it's the official line. No, actually, I just hit 13 years. So that's exciting. I'm actually on our partner and alliances team, though I've worn many different hats here. So I work with both our customers as well as actually our partners as well to make sure that everybody's just the most of the platform, that we're building the feature sets, the workflows, the integrations that basically allow us to do all the things that Tom was just mentioning, right? Address all those issues. My little fun fact there, listening to Less Than Jake, which probably dates me, but I got to see them a week ago or so as they were touring around. So that was a fun blast from the past. If you're like the one other ska guy on the call, what's up?
Were
That
you
happened to you, Tom.
there we go, we got a hand raised. Were you skanking at the concert?
Less now that I'm older, more just hanging out, bopping along in the back, but
You could pull a
appreciating
tear
it. I was at the edge of the circle pit, right? Not in it, but at the
because
edge.
you can absolutely tear an ACL skanking. It's happened.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure that happened on their tour. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Will, and we'll hear more from Will in a bit. I'm Tom. I've been with AppSpace about 8 years now. Right now, my responsibility is to run our enterprise sales team for the Americas. Love going to see offices around the world and just kind of learn how we can help. It's always interesting to see how people not just use technology, but use it in the way that makes sense for their corporate culture. So it's always interesting. TV binge right now, I would say right now, as well as the last several years, I'm obsessed with I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. Great sketch comedy. So if you like Monty Python, SNL, that sort of thing, and you're extremely irreverent, you should check that out on Netflix. So, all right. Well, that's a little bit about us. There we go, Aaron Smith. Thank you. Yes, I can recognize a quote from a mile away. All right, cool. So let's dive in. Let's get somewhat serious here. Core problem, right? Let's just kind of walk through a couple bullet points, right? This should sound familiar to everybody, right? Like every time there's an issue, your phone rings. You're juggling tons of different support tickets across disconnected systems. Employees are trying to use the technology and there's user error or something is failing. And you're kind of stuck in the middle trying to figure out how to make it just work, right? And of course, anyone on the outside looking in who doesn't do this all day, every day for a living thinks that this stuff should just magically work. It should just kind of come together. And when it doesn't, it's on our shoulders, right? And we got to go fix it. So that's the problem. But what's the actual reality of this? Like, why is this happening? And too often it's really because of a super fragmented ecosystem. Think about the living, breathing nature of a big company, right? These are things that have been around a long time, that have tech debt, that have competing organizations within that company, that one team likes Slack and the other department likes Teams, and somebody else has Zoom, and then they acquired a company that uses Meet. So very quickly things kind of add up over time. And so as a result, you have lots of different collaboration platforms, hardware that's all across the board. You've got data sources coming from all over the place, whether it's sensors, calendars, SharePoint. And then the problem is very quickly all of these things stop talking to each other if they ever did in the first place, and it creates chaos. And if something goes wrong, now you've got to figure out where in this tangled web was the fail point. And so there's a real cost to that. So if you think about the cost of all this complexity, I mean, number one is you're wasting a ton of time. But just right there on the next bullet point, the employee experience suffers, right? You have people that are wasting time trying to get a meeting to get started. They're creating support tickets. And so as you can see, as we go through the list, it starts to lead to a lot of pain. And again, we have to figure out a way to solve for some of that. So it's a challenge, right? And so if we pivot over to what we can do about it, we work with customers and with our partners all the time, especially the folks that are in the kind of unified communications and AV world, to figure out how to solve for that. And again, we don't pretend to be 100% of the solution, but I think when you think about what AppSpace does through this lens, you start to realize that we bring a ton of value to solving for these challenges. And one of the easiest things you can do is these conference room displays are just sitting there with very static imagery. If they're not just the default purple background of Microsoft Teams or the Golden Gate Bridge that we've probably all seen a million times from Zoom, you should transform these into a communication channel. And this should be something that should be in partnership with the UC and AV team, as well as the communications team. So that way you're displaying really critical information the second people need it, right? And whether that's QR codes that take people back to live updated information about how to use the room, or it's just obviously very clear instructions about what to do with that room. There's a ton of ways that AppSpace, with our partnership with Microsoft, with Zoom, with Google, and Cisco, regardless of what the tech stack is in the room, we can run our app on there and bring room instructions and QR codes to the screens. And so what should you show on your screen? Well, we've seen organizations have a ton of success with not just tech support, but also information about how to actually use the technology. Anyone here who knows, and probably many of us, right, who are tasked with making sure that people know how to use Microsoft Teams rooms, MTR had over 500 feature updates so far this year. How you keep up with that when you're printing out a piece of paper that tells people how to join things, it's going to be impossible, especially for organizations that have lots and lots and lots of conference rooms. And so putting up tech support, meeting information as well. You've got the ability to show Office 365 dynamic data from pulled from AppSpace to the room, as well as company updates and even wayfinding, right? AppSpace has a mapping engine inside of it, so you can actually direct people to other areas of the floor and help people with understanding kind of more about their environment. And so it's a really perfect tool to meet people where they are when they get into the conference room, to cut down on those meeting start times and decrease the support tickets. And again, the beauty of it is that AppSpace is agnostic in the sense that we've already partnered with Zoom, Microsoft, Cisco, Google Meet. We have a number of hardware partners as well, that allow you to basically leverage AppSpace regardless of what's already there. So back to the theme of today, leveraging what you've already got, right? And so the second strategy is, once I pull all of these things together, now AppSpace allows you to manage all of those different systems in the same platform. And so with our dashboard, you'll be able to see the health status and usage of the platform from AppSpace's point of view, of course, in a single spot. So I don't need to manage what that endpoint is showing in a separate platform, because these are Zoom rooms, so they use Zoom signage, and these are Cisco, so I have a separate URL or a JPEG that goes to the Cisco endpoints. I can have it all managed out of one single dashboard. And so real quick, we'll pivot to a live demo, one of two live demos we'll do on this call, and Will is going to walk you through what that dashboard looks like.
All right, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I thought it would be helpful to jump back into the actual console here to take a quick look. This is more the administrative side of things, right? How do you actually accomplish what we were just talking about? But it's all in service of that actual employee experience, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here, is make that as seamless, as frictionless, as easy as possible, so folks can just get to work, right? Just hop in a room, start a call, share a screen, collaborate, whatever they need to do. So I'm in an AppSpace, one of my demo instances here. Sitting on the dashboard. This is going to be the overall dashboard. So this isn't just for someone who might be managing those devices, managing what content goes where, but even creating content itself, right? Publishing messaging out, making sure that the timely, town hall announcement goes out at the right time. So what I'm going to do is pivot directly to that device management kind of area or dashboard in the platform. So here I can see all the devices, right? All the different hardware across the board that AppSpace is managing, monitoring, tracking, and actually, extending the usability, the use cases on. Here on my demo instance, I've got quite a few instances plugged in, or quite a few pieces of hardware plugged in. Now, granted, a lot of these are in a test lab, so not all of them are online at the moment, but it's actually good because I get to show you kind of what we can track. So you'll see here in my long list of devices, I have a lot of different devices, and actually very different purpose-built devices. So I have, of course, some Microsoft Teams Rooms devices, right, that are sitting in a collab space when they're not actually in a call, when they're not doing a screen share, or maybe when they're not actually fully, asleep overnight. That's where you're delivering that messaging. That's where you're taking over that default wallpaper. It's where you're not worried about trying to log in, upload that JPEG, like Tom mentioned, right? We're tracking that here. Same thing with maybe a Zoom room, right? Whatever that hardware is, again, we don't care what the actual hardware is for the MTR for the Zoom room. We're going to manage and track it here. It could be dedicated collab devices, like in this case, a WebEx room kit or room bar, maybe a Neat frame, maybe just a simple Windows device like a Nook, more in the signage world, a Chromebox, a BrightSign signage player, right? Once all these devices are set up in AppSpace, they're all tracked here in the same way. So I can at a glance see what they are, see what the devices are, see what the status is. Do they have the latest content, the latest messaging? Are they online, right? Are they pulling that messaging from AppSpace, or are they not? In some cases, maybe it's expected, maybe not, but I can track all that here. I can see how they're grouped, how they're tagged, what they're currently displaying, when they were last updated, so on and so forth. I can even add additional information there as well. Here in the dashboard, I can filter this down. So for example, I could create custom device groups. For example, maybe I just want to see my collaboration devices, right? I'm not really concerned about traditional signage. Maybe this is in the hallway or the lobby, video walls, kiosks, things like that. I just want my collab devices, so I might group those specifically, maybe within a certain location. I can even break this down further. So I'm in a little demo location. You can see here in the top right, maybe, but I might build this out more broadly, right? So I might be managing devices globally and dividing those. So I can not only track down the device that I need to check status on or get more information on, but of course, publish appropriately as well. So I might have some global content that's going to show up on every, let's say, Teams room device I have across the entire globe, maybe different languages for different countries, but the same basic content. But there might also be unique information for a particular office, right? So in addition to that info about how to, just kick off your meeting, get connected, get started, maybe there's something very specific about this particular office, this particular set of conference rooms that I need to convey as well. I've got that targeting and that organization to get the right message to the right display. For any of these devices, we'll go to one that's online here, a bright sign in this case, again, because they all kind of function the same way. We're going to pull that information in. I can see the status. I can see the latest app version, IP address, serial number, maybe MAC address, etc. Anything we're able to pull in. I could also even see what content is currently playing on that particular display. I could adjust settings. I could even set up alerts, right? I could assign maybe room resources. So if it's instead like a room booking panel, I can tell what room it's going to show scheduling information for right here within the platform. I can even dig into some more deep dive settings. So I can see insights, right? How my devices come online, come offline, how many have I added in certain time frames, or even adjust some settings like registration recovery to make sure that if for whatever reason a device gets, I don't know, it gets a reset, right? Something's happening. You're troubleshooting a whole different issue. They're going to automatically re-enroll themselves with AppSpace and get that appropriate messaging. And I might also even set up additional default settings like for software updates, for fallback content, operating hours to black out the screen when no one's looking at it overnight. Or a very critical one in this use case, I can set up notifications. So I can have the right people get notified at the right time if a device does go offline, right? If it does lose that communication, maybe somebody accidentally got a little overzealous with the firewall rules and blocked it from communicating and pulling down the updates it needs. Well, we could alert someone, maybe alert someone on a global level, or maybe just the appropriate local person, right? That's entirely customizable here. In addition to that, you can pull full device audit reports, right? So every little bit of information AppSpace collects about all these different devices, doesn't matter what the manufacturer, the OS, the tech stack, we can pull that in, export it, automatically email it out so that maybe you don't even have to get into AppSpace, or even dump that information into, say, Power BI, something like that. So you can take the information out of our tool and visualize it in kind of the BI tool that you use day to day, in addition to all the things that we surface in our dashboard. So I'm going to stop there. We want to keep it kind of high level, make sure we touch on everything. Let me jump back to the presentation, and then I think we'll have a little bit more we'll show you here later as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Will, and we'll hop back into another live dev in a second. So David in the chat had asked how we cut from either Team or Zoom to signage and back, and so just a key thing there. There's no additional hardware, there's no additional HDMI switching or anything like that because our device app is running in the operating system of the collab solution itself. So inside of Zoom and inside of Microsoft Teams room. So we'll actually show you on the second installment of our live demo how you actually create the settings for when that happens. But just to not bury the lead, essentially it's we're keying off of when the MTR or Zoom room goes into kind of like a half-wake state. And then that would open up our device app. And then when someone does something, walks in the room or touches something, whatever those settings are inside of either Microsoft PnP or Zoom controls, that would tell us to go away and open up, the native operating system. But again, we'll show you that. But it's very elegant and it's customized to your environment. So you basically dictate a lot of those settings. So back to kind of a recap what we just saw, right? That's our unified dashboard. That's just part of AppSpace, right? We're hardware agnostic in general, so it's no different whether you're managing, BrightSign or Chromebox or Intel NUC players for digital signage. It's the same concept for MTR, Zoom, Cisco, Google Meet, and then again, that allows you to basically push content updates to any screen at any time, and also, of course, monitor the health and stay on top of your entire environment. So with that, we're going to go into a third kind of strategy, if you will. It's the idea that because a workplace doesn't typically have a single standard, although that's the aspiration, and if so, great. You need platforms that are agnostic or as agnostic as possible. And you need to have those in your Rolodex ready to go so that you can create consistent user experiences and reduce surprises and reduce headaches. So again, with obviously it's self-serving for us given our messaging here, but using AppSpace, which has partnered natively, not hacked together. It's a native partnership that we've worked with the product teams on those other platforms to create that secure hand in glove and scalable solution to allow you to have a consistent experience regardless of the room, and help people as they get back in the offices and continue to use that functionality. And so probably good time to maybe pivot back to another live demo. But what we want to underscore here is we're going to show you how we actually do that. So how would I take a mixed environment of collaboration solutions and bring them together for a consistent experience, and allow myself to push content and alerts seamlessly to all of those. So we'll go back to the live demo environment. And from here, you'll see not just AppSpace, but Microsoft Teams environments, Zoom environments, and how this all comes together in a much more concrete way. So, Will, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, thanks, Tom. Let me jump back to my browser here. So we can't show you literally everything because we mentioned a lot of tech stacks, a lot of platforms, a lot of partners. I can't show you everything, but we at least wanted to touch on that MTR and Zoom integration because both of them are, one, relatively new, but also really exciting in how they work. The goal, as we saw earlier, is to get all these different devices kind of managed in one place to make that consistent kind of employee or end user experience, and also just make your lives easier. Because going back to the original use case of, maybe you can upload a custom like JPEG, PNG wallpaper on an MTR device and call it a day. It's fine to a degree. One, it's a pain to manage, it's a pain to update. But what this really enables, pulling all these devices together, is that you can kind of, from an IT perspective, a collab perspective, an AV perspective, whatever team you might sit on, you can kind of hand over the keys once the initial configuration is done. So that when your comms team, your HR team comes to you and says, oh, I've got some Microsoft Teams rooms, we'll jump into the pro management portal here, and I want to get a new message out, you're not groaning. You're not thinking, okay, I got to go give me some JPEG. Oh, they gave me some 8K random image. Like I gave me the wrong thing. Like, let me go through all this. You don't have to worry about that, right? You can just hand over the keys, let them manage what they manage best, which is the comms, which is the content. So you can like go about your day, right? Do your actual job. So how does that work? Let's start with Microsoft Teams Rooms. But for both Teams Rooms and Zoom, as Tom alluded to earlier, these are platform level integrations. We're actually integrated at the software layer. So we are built into these management portals, which makes this a very seamless integration, right? Even more so than some things you may have seen out there where you're kind of dropping in images, you're like kind of hot linking to your URL or something. This goes beyond that. So in the Microsoft Teams world here, I'm in Pro Management Portal, right? If I was managing a MTR room deployment, this is where I might live, spend a lot of my time. What I'll do is go down here to settings, and there is a digital signage setting here now. So if you haven't been in PMP in a while, or maybe just haven't had a reason to look in kind of the default settings, this should be showing up. This does require a Teams Rooms Pro license for those MTR devices. So I do like to throw that out there right at the start. So if you don't see this, you might not have any Teams Rooms Pro licenses. But otherwise, this digital signage option is going to be there. Now, here in my kind of test environment, my demo environment, I've already gone through this setup. In fact, I've actually gone through the setup a number of times, and some of my colleagues have as well. I try not to blow away all their hard work. So we'll imagine, if we will, when I first show up here, this little digital signage toggle at the top is going to be off. First step, turn that on. Next step, I'm going to add a signage source. So I'm going to click to add a source. I'm going to give it a name. Call this app space demo 1, because apparently I already used that. We'll get very creative. And then it's going to ask me to essentially connect this to AppSpace. You'll see right here when I'm selecting my signage source or my comms source, I could do custom, right? That's kind of that old hacky method of like pointing to a URL, but AppSpace is built right in. We're the only enterprise level comms platform, workplace management platform that's built in at the Pro Management Portal level. And what it's asking me for is an integration ID. So I just pop back over to AppSpace. I go to my devices. And again, this is a platform level integration. I'm not just doing this for like one little MTR here and there. So I'm going to go to add a device, but I'm going to go to my Microsoft Teams Rooms option and grab my integration ID. Again, I've already generated this ID, so I can just copy it here, right? It's got some default content already assigned. So even if my comms team, my HR team aren't on the ball, at least we're going to have some standardized content up on the screen. I'll pop over here, drop my integration ID, validate, and I'm good to go. From there, I'll acknowledge terms, I'll review and finish, and I've set up that platform-to-platform integration. Now, don't worry, that's not going to immediately impact your MTR. You're not going to start seeing like random content or black screens or anything like that. That just ties the two platforms together. From here, I might want to adjust some preferences. So for example, I could choose whether or not the Teams Room banner is going to show even when your comms, your signage content is showing. So Microsoft can actually still overlay the MTR information, right? What room is this? What's the time and date? What's coming up next? They can overlay it on top of the content, or maybe not, if you want the content to be, standalone. I can also choose how and when my comms content, my information is going to display, right? Have it automatically activate signage, maybe a minute after the last meeting ends. Maybe it keeps that comms content up there until someone actually manually starts a meeting, or maybe it automatically stops a minute before that scheduled meeting is about to kick off. And then I can choose whether or not my MTR is going to go fully to sleep after a certain amount of time, whatever your standard settings are, or whether that signage mode is going to keep it awake so that anytime anybody walks into that room, your messaging is right there up front. They're going to see those room instructions or that like QR code to, hopefully not, but QR code to open a ServiceNow ticket or whatever the case may be. From there, I can actually then assign this to rooms, right? I can do this in bulk, choose my source app space. Sorry, I was giving me a little prompt there for feedback. But I could assign this to multiple rooms, or I could even go to an individual room, right? Go to maybe my demo MTR here, go to its settings, and actually configure the digital signage on the specific room itself. So again, it's not all or nothing. If you want to test this out with one of your rooms, get some feedback on the capabilities that it brings, you can certainly do that without swapping your entire deployment over. But when you're ready, it's just as simple. Just flip the switch, and you've got content. You can again hand those keys over to your comms folks. Everything, by the way, when you activate this MTR integration with AppSpace or the Zoom integration I'm going to jump to next, everything from that point forward is handled automatically behind the scenes. So when you turn on digital signage, like I've got it turned on for this MTR here, it's going to automatically configure all the Microsoft MTR settings, but it's also going to then automatically associate that room with AppSpace, with your AppSpace account. It's going to assign that default content. It's going to name it automatically in AppSpace. So if you go into the console to that device screen I was showing earlier, or maybe your comms folks, your HR folks are, they're going to see which room it is, right? They're not trying to like track down and map, okay, this MAC address is in this room, right? We pull that information over directly from Pro Management Portal. And it's a very similar story in the world of Zoom rooms as well. So here I'm in the Zoom admin console. Again, this is kind of my little test and demo and dev instance where I've got some Zoom rooms. I can actually jump into a Zoom room here, maybe go into my room settings for this individual room and set up digital signage. Now, if you're familiar with Zoom rooms, they have their own basic digital signage offering. Kind of gives you the same experience where I could upload maybe not just a single JPEG, but a few JPEGs and have it kind of loop through or just point it to a URL, right? Really basic stuff, not super friendly when you're deploying and managing communications in bulk, especially as your comms get more and more dynamic. But regardless, I can go to my digital signage setting, and instead of just uploading, an image or something, there's actually a dedicated AppSpace app. See, again, we're testing, so I got a few instances here, but this is published, actually about to be published. You're sitting a little preview here, about to go GA here very shortly to the Zoom Room app store. So essentially I would add an app, add AppSpace, just like you would add any other Zoom Room app. At that point, kind of like you saw in PnP, it's going to authenticate with your AppSpace account. So it's that same platform to platform level integration. I'll select it here, add it as my content item. And again, that's basically it. I don't even have to mess with like the content duration and playlist and all the signage settings here in Zoom Room. Once I've connected to AppSpace, like I just did there, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to automatically configure my Zoom Rooms to show that content. It's going to automatically register them to my AppSpace account, drop them in there for your comms folks or whoever, your publishers to actually get content out there, pull in the right name, the right identifier and everything. So from that point forward, from the kind of the IT, collab, AV perspective, you're done. Your hands off, right? You can let them have fun, let them publish critical messaging, or of course, keep that control yourself and publish that, how-to information or hey, Zoom just pushed out a new update. Now you have to tap this instead of tap that, right? You can easily do that in bulk. One last thing, let me give myself a time check, but one last thing I did want to show if I jump back over to AppSpace is that ease of management. And again, all the things we just talked about is is really leading us to this point where we have all of our different devices, right? All these different pieces of hardware, different OSs managed within app space. I can then very easily manage that content. So even here on the device screen, say I've got a new bit of messaging, a new bit of like, tip on how to have a productive meeting I want to push out to all my collaboration devices. Well, I could just filter down to the devices I need. Maybe in this case, I'll just select them all, and I'll actually assign a new, as we call it, channel of content or playlist of content. So I'll select a new channel, and maybe I want to switch this over to my IT and security updates messaging. That's it. So the next time any of those devices go into that kind of like half wake, idle screensaver mode, whatever you might want to call it, they're going to pull that new IT and security channel, that new content, and start displaying it. That's all I've got to do. The one other thing I wanted to highlight too, without getting too deep in kind of the product demo category, but I like to point this out as well, is we do have a feature called Broadcast that allows you to switch that content kind of at a moment's notice. I wanted to highlight this because it's a nice way to maybe mix it up for like a special event or something like that without changing the default content. So maybe I still want to leave all of my collaboration devices on that IT channel, that IT playlist I just switched them over to. But let's say on the day of a town hall, we've got some special messaging. We want all of our meeting rooms to say town hall starts at 3 p.m. or 3 p.m. Eastern or whatever the case may be. I might use the broadcast feature to get that message out there. Maybe show a special image or something like that. Maybe just a simple text message. Whatever, probably not the best copy, but we'll leave it at that. And then again, I can target my specific devices, maybe specific device groups, locations, etc. And then immediately either broadcast that out, override the normal content for the day. So again, when those devices aren't in a meeting, when they're not in a screen share, they'll show this broadcast message instead, or even schedule that for later. So if I know, again, maybe in my town hall example, know exactly when that's going to hit, I could schedule it for the right date and time. So it just gives you all this flexibility to extend the use of those devices once that initial kind of platform-to-platform integration is configured. There's way more that we could talk about, not just capabilities of AppSpace, but also all the other ecosystems we integrate with. I mean, we're in Google Admin Console for your Meet devices. We're in WebEx Control Hub for your WebEx devices and so on. Don't have time for it all, but hopefully that gives you a taste of how you can kind of build that integration, right? Pull in all these devices. I know I work with plenty of companies that have both Zoom and MTR, relevant to the example today, and then just run with it, right? Just manage those devices, keep track of what they're showing, when they're showing it, etc. Let me jump back here and we'll keep it moving along.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Will. We have a couple questions. I guess we'll save them to the end. I'm not going to be able to weave them in to the narrative as it is, but I will let me go over here. So the just kind of a recap of the demo, right? Again, it's a single platform app space that allows you to pull in multiple different collaboration providers so that way you can seamlessly get content in a unified way. But again, you can customize that. So the meeting room instructions obviously are different depending on, the room setup and the collaboration provider. But it allows for no compatibility headaches, right? So you are 100% future-proofed, you're ready to go, and you can just layer this on top of what you've already deployed. And then as standards do kind of get rolled out, so you're migrating over the course of a 2-year project, AppSpace is right there to kind of just seamlessly make that easy for people. And so as we kind of go on to another kind of critical part of this, it's great too because you get a lot of data. So you'll be able to see proof of play, what content was shown, and then if you combine that with data that you might be getting from sensors and occupancy and things like Viopta, which are tracking, the use of video inside of rooms, you can start to get a really well-informed understanding of how rooms are used and if your investment's paying off. We have a very, very large investment management company that actually rolled out kind of A/B testing. So they did a pilot with AppSpace and they rolled out MTR for two new offices. One office, they used AppSpace to show room instructions with a QR code, and the other was just native MTR. And they were able to glean a lot of findings that supported that just simply investing in the AppSpace platform and deploying that, which is a minimal cost on top of their overall cost of their conference rooms, decreased their support tickets significantly, enough that it would pay for itself within the first year. And so you've seen people doing things like that to help use data to drive an informed decision about how to make sure that these rooms are being used the right way. And so what kind of data do we typically get? Well, it's obviously starts out as raw data. So we have organizations that are using AppSpace not just for digital signage, but also as an overlay to Outlook and Microsoft Teams to actually book those spaces, as well as desks and lockers and lots of other things. And so when you're combining it with that, now you actually get a much more holistic picture of not just usage, but even patterns. And so how many people are in the room? Who's booking the room? How often is the room being used? If it's being used, is it also being used with video? Because we capture over 2,000 data points within our platform, especially when people are leveraging our mobile app, you can combine that with lots of other data points because you own that data. And we had one organization as a large pharmaceutical company out of Europe. It was very clear to them that they actually were over investing in video in some areas and under investing in video in other areas. And they were able to see that based on the amount of video usage paired with AppSpace data on occupancy and usage. So really, really interesting stuff there. And then finally, at the end of the day, this is all about simplifying things, right? And so it should be easier when you roll AppSpace out, not more complicated. It's a unified platform. And so you're really reducing the number of vendors that you need in total, and helping people spend less time with their meeting start times and helping you spend less time supporting them, so you can focus on the things that matter, right? Which is driving innovation at the organizations that you work at. So just to kind of tie it all together, AppSpace is a modern workplace experience platform. We've been doing this a very long time, and we focus on a scalable solution that works within virtually any corporate technology environment. So whether it's Microsoft, Google, Zoom, Cisco, we also have tons of integrations with companies like ServiceNow, Workday. And so the idea is you layer AppSpace in over top your existing tech stack, and then you decide how much of our platform do you want to leverage. Is it digital signage to start? Is that wholesale digital signage or just in the conference room space to get started? Or do I want to look at other vendors that I can consolidate and have a much more unified experience? And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see AppSpace, what we covered today is just a small fraction of one of the things that we do for organizations across the world. We work with over 200 of the world's Fortune 500, and our focus is making the workplace, whether you're at home or in the office, as frictionless as possible. And so we do that with a focus on not just workplace communications, but workplace management. And so if you look at those outcomes that we provide with this single tool called AppSpace, it's going to help people do a whole lot with just a single vendor. And then if you go to the next slide, it's not about replacing Outlook. It's not about replacing SharePoint, replacing ServiceNow, replacing Workday, replacing Microsoft Teams. It's about augmenting and then helping with those, getting more return on investment on those. And we do that through really deep partnerships and deep integrations. And so, kind of as we go along here, we're really focused on connecting your ecosystem. So having kind of that single platform that connects to these collaboration services, connects to digital signage and room scheduling panels, and pulling in even things like sensors and IoT data sources, and delivering a really engaging experience. And I'll kind of quasi finish. I still have a couple of slides after this one, but if you go to the next slide, this is something that is not like we just came up with this idea. We've been doing this a really long time. We're a leader in this space, and we have customer references across every vertical, across different shapes and sizes. And one that really jumps out to me is this very, very large global financial firm that had a huge footprint of meeting rooms across 3 continents. And they really wanted to make sure that when they rolled out MTR on their Cisco hardware, that the workflows that were going to be a little bit different from room to room and from office to office, that those instructions were super clear, and that way the rollout was going to be successful. And so we reduced support tickets by 40% and really, really helped the IT and AV managers and the unified comms team get a good sense of room utilization, but most importantly, again, it was just about that reduced support tickets. And so, again, the quote there, for the first time, we can manage our entire global fleet of rooms from one place and manage that experience remotely. And so the key takeaways here is take those idle screens and turn them into a very, very powerful communication asset, not just put a JPEG on a playlist, right? Have something that can be really thoughtfully deployed. And then that dashboard in the back end can help you unify the experience across multiple collaboration endpoints. Um, we use data, not guesswork, right? So all of this is going to be data that you would own as an end user, and then focus on creating that consistent experience. And that is going to bleed itself into not just digital signage and conference rooms, but it's the scheduling tablets, it's the kiosks, it's the video walls, and it's even the mobile experience that you'll get from that. And so, if you do want to learn more, you can go to appspace.com, of course. You can find us on LinkedIn. So I'd love to connect with many of you on LinkedIn, as well as Will. We've got, I'm sure lots of mutual connections already if we don't already know each other. And we'd love to help. And we always are happy to do demonstrations and give people early access to this kind of stuff if they want to test it out. So thank you on behalf of the AppSpace team and Avixa for taking the time out of your busy schedules to hear more from us. And then I know we have a handful of questions, so why don't we dive into that? So let's start off with what kind of permissions would we need from the IT department, and how receptive have IT departments been so far? I don't know, Will, if you want to take that. I'm trying to think about.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of cop-out answer is that it depends on the platform, right? Different roles, different access to, say, PMP versus Zoom admin versus WebEx Control Hub versus, if you have like Samsung Tizen displays for traditional signage, something like that. But traditionally, it's pretty minimal, especially if we're talking about the comm side of things. Essentially need the cooperation of that, say that administrator in Pro Management Portal to go through that process I showed earlier with that integration ID, kind of get that set up initially. The nice thing again is you're not handing over the keys to, say, Pro Management Portal to your comms folks, right? They don't have to ever see that screen. They're living their lives in AppSpace to publish messaging and content, or maybe help you with like the room instructions or whatever. They take your copy about how to connect and start a meeting and make it all pretty and on brand. They're doing all that. So really, it's just that initial kind of configuration and setup. All the Not to get too in the weeds, but all the like the technical side of it, like all the communication, network communication happens over standard HTTPS port 443, right? We've got SOC 2, we've got Cloud Star Alliance, all that kind of good stuff as well, which usually helps with, I think, the second part of that question, such as how is it getting buy-in? Honestly, usually pretty easy. And if we go into the workplace management side of things, right, like room booking, desk booking, etc., that's where you might leverage our integrations to 365 or Google Calendar, right? Get a bi-directional sync of bookings, so no matter how a booking happens, right, that's going to be a consistent experience. Again, that's where we'd have to work with that 365 admin to set up that enterprise app integration, right? It's all modern integration. It's all up to Microsoft's latest standards because we are a certified partner of theirs. So again, usually not a big hurdle, just a conversation to outline, what scopes we need and so on, and make sure that everything is, all the right boxes are checked internally so that no one gets their hands slapped when we pull the trigger and set those integrations up.
Perfect. Okay, and then is the dashboard configurable, such as hiding certain widgets or moving them around? I think the straightforward answer is not really, but the overall experience of AppSpace will depend on your user role and permissions, right? So if I am kind of a lower level permissioned user of AppSpace at an organization, I see a whole lot less in that menu, and potentially even within those menus, the things that I can see. So we do strip down the experience for folks that have less to do with AppSpace in their environment based on their permissions. But as far as like the actual dashboard, if I want this chart to be over here and this over here, the UI or the GUI of AppSpace isn't configurable like that on the admin side. The reports are much more configurable and much more customized, so your outputs definitely can be customized. Will, fair or do you?
Yeah, that's fair. And just to add to that, so the report's very customizable in terms of what data, what scope, what duration, et cetera, whether it's you're manually pulling that data or scheduling an automatic report or something. We have started to add some extra customization there. So to Tom's point, if you even have the level of access to get to that full device management page that I was showing earlier, which is questionable. Maybe you don't even see the option to get there depending on your role. But if you do, we actually have added some customization there. So all those columns, right? When I'm looking at my device listing, the columns of what data we surface, how it's organized, how you're filtering and sorting, that we actually have added customization. So if you want to rearrange that, want the device like IP address or device MAC address to be like front and center, the first thing you see, and then it's all the kind of content stuff follows after that. You actually can customize that. So we've gotten that feedback. It's something we're adding more and more into the platform, and I know that's kind of taking the analytics work we're already doing and adding more customization to it and pulling even like other analytics data like live sensor data, not just historical stuff like that, is something into Q4 of this year into next year that's a focus for us. So we're on that path is what I'm happy to say.
Cool. All right, cool. And then kind of two related questions. Can AppSpace monitor peripherals such as displays or DSPs? Can you also manage BYOD devices, camera, speaker, microphones? Will, you want to take a crack at that one?
So typically we're managing the core device itself. So by that I mean the actual like MTR collab device, Zoom collab device, Poly device, Logitech device, whatever it is, because that's kind of the context that we live in, right? We want to make sure that device is online, it's connected to the network, it's getting out to the cloud in our case, typically to pull that comms. Doing less of the peripheral management to kind of stay in our lane. Going back to what we showed earlier, we do a whole lot, so we don't want to offer something that's marginally useful versus like sticking to the core kind of component that we're unifying, which is really the employee experience of kind of what it is to actually see and interact with those devices. So less so on the peripherals, more on the core device.
Perfect. And then the final two questions that are definitely related. When is this coming for MTR on Android? And what's the ETA for the Zoom Room app? I think I know the answer, but Will, you're absolutely closer to this, so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if we didn't get these two questions. So I am on our partners team, so I actually talk to both the Zoom product engineering team and the Microsoft product engineering team pretty regularly. Um, this is, in both cases, it takes two to tango, so it is a joint effort, joint decision. For MTR Android, actually a great point I usually mentioned earlier. Right now, any MTR Windows device is supported. Android is still being worked on. That is primarily being buttoned up on the Microsoft side, all the extra hooks into their Android MTR software and some of the extra management capabilities they need to implement in Pro Management Portal for that. Their goal is by the end of the year. Really, what that means is by the end of November, because they do end-of-year code freeze like so many software companies out there. So that's the expected time frame. I don't have an exact date from them yet. Believe it or not, I can't tell Microsoft what to do as much as I'd like to. But should be by end of November is the goal currently. On the Zoom Room side, we're looking at middle of October. If we can squeeze it out sooner, we will. There's been a lot of demand for it. We're kicking into kind of early trials right now, right? Q&A and kind of pre-release trials joint with Zoom. But that official GA would be in our October release.
Awesome. Okay. Josh, did we miss anything? Dion? If not,
Nope,
I'll wrap.
you're good, guys.
All right. Well, or Dion, I don't know if you want to wrap up, but I will just say one final word, at least from AppSpace. Thank you, everybody. Again, in the chat, you've got my LinkedIn information there. I already got a couple people that hit me up, so thank you to you guys. And some of you I may have already stalked while we were on the call. That's just my nature. So thank you, everybody. We'll definitely connect afterwards. Yeah, Dion, anything you wanted to say from Avixa before we wrap?
Yep, I sure do. I just want to thank you, both you and Will. And I'd like to thank all of our attendees so much for joining us on today's presentation. Unlock value in the AV tools you've already got. This recording will be made available on the Avixa website as well. And that location is avixa.org/webinars. It'll be uploaded within 7 days or so, and your one renewal unit will be applied to your transcripts within those 7 days. If you have any trouble, please contact Avixa's webinar team directly, and that's webinars@avixa.org. An important note for you CTS holders, if you registered for this presentation with an email address other than the one that we have on file for you, you won't get credit for attending. This can be fixed on the back end. Just please email membership@avixa.org and let your account manager know that you used the wrong email address when you registered, and we'll get it fixed for you on the back end. I need to take the time to thank AppSpace, and a huge thank you again to Tom and Will for helping us to understand how you can unlock the AV tools that you already have. One final note is that to be sure to continue your conversation and connections made today by joining the Avixa Exchange. It's an AV provider directory and year-round community where you can grow your network and stay updated on industry trends. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation today. Thank you so much, and make it a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.